Honored to welcome Jenny Cohen to the show today. I'm very excited to have her on. She is someone who works so much with the mind and really becoming the greatest versions for herself. She works so hard to cultivate so many different tools to kind of help people, right? She has an amazing story and she works a lot with somatics, which is something that we've talked a lot before, but essentially how your mind and body are connected, right? And once we can really understand that, how to optimize our minds and our bodies, we can really optimize our life. So I'm very excited to have her on the show today. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me, Anthony.
Absolutely. So, very curious to hear your story and how you got into the mind and somatics and how you're helping people today.
Well, thank you for the ask of my story. I had undergone breast cancer treatment back in 2014. And prior to that, I used dance as a way to connect and be present because I did not realize until we began a hardcore recovery process during the lockdown, which I lovingly call the COVID lockdown. I lovingly call it the panini because it's still rife with people at odds with each other about whether or not the COVID lockdown still like COVID's still here or not. And we have auto compromised family members, myself being a breast cancer survivor. So during the lockdown, I realized, ooh, the book that I wrote in 23 about my breast cancer recovery would be a great way for people who are still very unresolved about what happened during that global lockdown, because we're all survivors of this big event. And oftentimes, this Western modern civilization, we're not equipped to deal with things like this. There's a little bit of a glitch. We want to either pretend it never existed, or there are people who lost loved ones, and we're not sure how to, our mind can't quite figure out how to let go of the past without letting go of that loved one, right? So then how do you go on? For me being a cancer survivor, there were issues I was trying to deal with behind the scenes by myself. For example, survivor guilt, anger that I got breast cancer. Anthony, when I was diagnosed in 2014, I had already been working out for about 8 months. Vegan, completely healthy, and out of the blue, I got cancer. How do you trust your body? Your mind doesn't quite trust your body. And what we don't realize is that we actually have to, it's a two-way street. Our body has to trust us. Yeah, I know. I say, you're like, mm-hmm. So now that science is beginning to break open some unawarenesses, if you do a Google search, you will find the cells in our brains or neurons. There are similar ones reflected in the heart and in the gut. And there's this ongoing communication between mind, heart, and gut all the time, whether or not our mind is consciously aware of it. All right, so you think about the very complicated digestion that has to happen inside our bodies, or the ways that you and I will subconsciously move out of danger without even understanding, wait, how did I know that was happening? How did I get out of the way? The subconscious way that our mind is working is in direct correlation with our body. So for us to be able to tap into all your abilities of your mind, one way is to go through your body. For example, I'm 57. In all of my 57 years of life, the only live thing that's stayed with me, or even unalive thing, if you think about it, like my fingernails or my hair, has been my body. So your body has been the only entity that's been with you since before you were born, right? And there are aspects of coaching and therapy and recovery that's starting to acknowledge, wow, the body actually keeps score. The body holds your memories that sometimes your conscious self can't access. So you can do muscle testing, which is applied kinesiology. So with your mind, you can ask your body questions. Hey, is this something good for me? And your body will answer you quite truthfully. It's whether or not you want to listen. Is your question simple enough, right? And the biggest thing is, when I first work with my clients, Anthony, and we do muscle testing, they'll be like, well, Jenny, that didn't really work. And I'll be like, yes, because probably your body doesn't trust you because your body's used to you kind of ignoring it and taking it for granted. So it's kind of like, Joe wasn't really going to listen to me. So why bother giving him a clear answer? Because he really doesn't want the answer that sugar's bad for him. He really wants a sugar. Why does he even bother asking me? He's going to eat it anyways. I was one of those. I can joke about that. I used to, before I got cancer, I would go through a 5-pound bag of sugar, okay, within 2 weeks, because I would have a lot of Earl Grey tea, and I rationalized, oh, there's caffeine in there, and the bergamot oil is good for my antidepressant. It's a good antidepressant. So I would just have so much sugar. And I know that when I went on my health kick for that 8 months, and then before I found the lump, my husband went in for emergency surgery. And during that time, I was eating at the cafeteria, all the bad stuff. And my body, with the stress of my husband going through life-saving surgery, my kids having no child care, they were sleeping in the car with the dogs all night for like 5 nights, right? My immune system broke down. And that's not something that my mind had control of. It was my body going, I can't do this. Like, you completely overdid yourself. I had no support at all. And I was really burning the candle, not just on both ends, but in the middle. Okay? So my body wasn't able to keep me safe during that period of time, and that's when the breast cancer showed up. Oftentimes, too, sometimes we don't always remember past things that influence our decisions today. For example, before, and I have permission to speak on this because both my fraternal twins through IVF, they're now of legal age, and they give me permission to talk about this, right? And so this is a trigger warning for your audience members, Anthony. Before we had to go through very intensive therapy to save one of my children's lives because they were self-harming and had suicidal ideation. Before we did this really intensive therapy, I always thought to myself, oh, my childhood wasn't that bad. We came to the States, I immigrated here. The only stories I remembered was I was 5 and I got put in first grade. So I was the youngest in the class, pretty small. And they had a little girl translating for me because I didn't speak any English. I'd only come to this country like a month. So I got put right to first grade. And this little girl translated only one day for me. And then because she was getting so much flack from the other kids, she refused to be my friend after that. So I have 1 day of communication, and then from that day forward, I had to learn English by myself. That's the only bad memories I had. And then through therapy for my child, who was then about 16, to keep her alive, I realized, oh, I need therapy. So then I went to therapy and realized, oh, my childhood was really bad. It wasn't that my parents were bad parents. My parents came from very, very poor families. They were farmers. So so the shape of Taiwan is like a bean. And my parents met in the northern part of Taiwan in the city capital, Taipei. My mother's from the middle of the bean, pretty country-like. My father is from southern Taiwan, the bottom part, where it was like Shrek country. You know Shrek, the movie? Like dirt floors, outhouses, no electricity. And when I was 4, my father immigrated to the States. And my grandmother, my father's mother, was supposed to go up north to Taipei and take care of my brother and I. I was 4, he was 2. Well, my father immigrated to the States because my mother had a full-time job. At the last minute, my grandfather, my father's father, said no, she cannot go. So instead of her coming up, my brother and I were shipped down south. From electricity, furniture, to plumbing, down south for 8 months. That's very extreme for a 4-year-old because I went from having my mom, at least, because my dad left for the U.S., down to a place where I had 2 elderly grandparents. I didn't speak the dialect that they spoke. And there was a reputation for Taiwanese men for being very misogynistic and wife beaters. So I watched him beat my grandmother every day. I didn't remember any of this. And then they would leave me alone during the day to care for my brother, who was 2, and I had to keep him alive for 8 months, 4-year-old. And I went, oh, so that's why all my life the first thing I would do in any group of strangers I would serve people. I would do it for safety. So you think about that. What are some things that your mind makes you do where you think it's good and automatic? Oh, I just like to help people. You know how many times, Anthony, now I won't serve someone because I don't need to? It's not my job. Like, why would I do that for you? I barely know you. In the past, right, I would make myself subservient to people because that was what I learned as a child that would keep me safe.
Wow, yeah. Fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. It's a great story. I mean, it's it was some crazy times like a few years ago, right? And then you kind of came to these tools of the mind, the body, and how they're all interconnected, right? And something that came up for me is like the body is really part of our consciousness, right? We don't really think of it like that, but it's very much an intelligence thing that we work with in a sense.
Very much so. Very much so. Your body, even now they're discovering, because when I started belly dancing, which is so the form of belly dancing that I do is more of an Americanized version of it, meaning my first teachers did not do too much of the culture or the history of the parts of the countries that they were influenced by, and I had to retroactively go back and learn because this form of movement and expression comes from countries like Iraq and Lebanon and Egypt and Jordan and Israel. Those countries, it comes from that region, and also from the continent of Africa, right? And those societies they're better at releasing emotions than we are in the Western world. So when you first learn to do that, I didn't realize until about 5 years into the study that we hold a lot of our emotions, especially repressed emotions, in the pelvic region. In belly dancing, you're doing a lot of hip shimmies, a lot of undulations through your core, where we store a lot of the memories. There's even correlations now with certain adults who don't know why they have stiff hips, and it's usually correlated to trauma that's not resolved. So that's really important for people to acknowledge that. And here's the thing. When my kids were junior Olympians, there was a training methodology where we would use their mind for practice and to visualize success. So rhythmic gymnastics is where you have the hoop and the ball and I'm having a brain fart. They look like the bowling pins that they're spinning and throwing and tossing, the ribbon, and then they have a floor routine. So there's 5 things they have to know how to do. And every routine has very specific tricks, very specific timing patterns you have to know. And when you go to compete, the judges they'll tick off if your apparatus comes out of, like, leaves the carpet, you get docked. So you have to be very precise with where you toss things and whether it's like a little miniature course in physics you have to understand. Part of my children's training, because I helped coach them, was to do mind visualization exercises. So they would run through their routines, even if they physically couldn't do it, and run through the timing, trajectory, their expression, everything in their minds as if it were perfect. And there's scientific research that shows that when you do that, your body will mimic as if it actually had done it, because your mind will convince your body you've done it. So that's what a
Awesome.
lot of elite athletes do, Anthony.
Yeah, I mean, it just speaks to the mind-body connection for sure. I mean, so you talk about dance a lot. Can you explain how that benefits you and how people can kind of utilize that as a tool in their own healing?
Absolutely. I would love to do that. That is really a main focus of my platform, especially in my Dance to Heal podcast. We want the world to know. I want the world to know. I want everyone listening to your audience, Anthony, that your right to move has a way of healing as your birthright. Okay? That you have all the tools of being able to align your mind and body so that you're completely grounded and centered in what you're trying to achieve. Kind of like what your sole purpose was in this lifetime, right? Because sometimes we're not born knowing. We just go through all these trials, accumulating tools, and we're not sure, well, what do I do next now that I've acquired all of these experiences? The use of dance for my clients and for myself personally, has always been a way to get really present very fast. What does that mean? So let's say you're going about your day and something sets you off and you're really unable to reset into your body, even if you know what that means, because most of the time we don't, be honest. My whole life is about embodiment and being in my body, and I still struggle to do it because the mind is really powerful. Okay, our minds are really powerful, and our minds want us in situations that are predictable. We don't like being in unpredictable settings, correct? So we like routine, right? And we tend to want to go back to routine. However, oftentimes for growth, you have to be in unfamiliar surroundings, or your mind will shut down. You won't grow, right? In dance, you can simulate growth by doing things like listening to different music, learning a dance format that's unfamiliar to you. There's many free YouTube videos. No one has to pay money. You know, I come off as very extroverted. I'm actually very introverted. It takes me a lot of energy to be with people, and then I have to refuel, and then I can go back out, right? Some people are like that. And science has now shown when you're dancing, it lights up so many parts of your brain at the same time. Very few other activities do that. If you think about it, it lights up your memory because the music that you're listening to is always associated to something for you, whether you like it or not, the music. You have to do motor planning, visual. Your audio centers in your brain are lit up, right? And then if you're learning a move versus you're doing improvisation, they go through different pathways in your brain. So if you want to know what that means, you can just pick 5. I'm doing this 100 days of challenge, 100 days of dance challenge, Anthony. They can find me on social media under Jenny C. Cohen, Instagram or Facebook. And basically every day you just dance to one song with one prompt. You journal how you feel before. You journal how you feel after you dance. You video yourself while you're dancing. Then you look at the video. People scream, well, I don't want to look at myself. You have to, because you want to learn to look at yourself with the Care Bears, Anthony? Do you remember the Care Bears? Am I dating myself? The Care Bears, they're the cartoons that just look at you with loving eyes. You learn to look at yourself with Care Bear stare. And you watch your dance video and you go, oh, I like those 3 things that I did to the music. And then you pick one thing you would do different. It's not a criticism. You're not going to do that. At first, people are like, I couldn't find one thing. I was like, you can find one thing. One thing. 3 things is actually the goal. 3 things you like about what you did in the video. One thing you would shift and do differently the next time you move to this song with a different prompt. Okay?
That's amazing. I like that because that ability to kind of self-assess and kind of process what's going on, it can lead to developing a passion for it, right? And then kind of utilize the tools that kind of expand and utilize as you need.
Yes, yes. And my goal in doing the dance as a platform, because I believe in this outside-in approach, and outside, I meaning outside is your body. Because once your body feels safe, your mind will feel safe. It affects your mind and your ability and your perspective to see things in a clearer way, right? If you don't feel safe, your mind will find ways to make it safe, even if it's not to your best interest. For example, fear of missing out, FOMO, right? If I'm feeling lonely and I'm not present, my mind will subconsciously go, okay, what can we do to make Jenny present? What can we make to make Jenny feel safe? So if I happen to be on my social media and I accidentally click on an ad and their thing is, oh, if you're in our community, you'll feel safe or something similar to it, I'll feel inclined to purchase it, even though it's not in my best interest. Because most sales things now, Anthony, are based on fear of missing out. If you don't do this now, the sale price is over, or buy it now, or get 2 for 1, right? And oftentimes, if I were more present in my body, I could see, 1, I don't want this. 2, I don't need this. 3, I can always buy this later because I know the sale is going to come around again, right? I can say this because I'm present. When I'm not present, it's very hard for me not to pull the trigger and buy it immediately.
Definitely.
Because those ads are banking on my feeling at the moment very vulnerable.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. You're kind of alluding into earlier how we kind of operate out of our past experiences, right? These old programmings that we don't really understand that are the reasons why we're doing what we do. And it's not until we start to bring awareness to that we can actually transform it.
Absolutely. When you become aware of it and you transform it, there is a reminder, a caveat, right? We always want to give ourselves grace, because when we're shifting into a direction we know would be better for us, we're kind of like the Titanic. You can only do one a few degrees at a time. And then you just got to stay the course and slowly pivot in the direction you want. It's not that. I discovered a lot of us want the quick and easy way, Anthony. Fast. We want it fast and furious, right? And real change is actually incremental, because you're shifting every day. You might say, today I want to go 17 degrees that way, but because you're still changing every day, it might really be 15 degrees. You really didn't want to go 17 degrees. So if you do little degrees at a time, you can still adjust your adjustment.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to change, because sometimes like doing everything all at once works for some people and in certain situations, but I feel like for the most part, and if it's going to be sustainable, you got to focus on those small wins. You got to trust the process, right? And just keep making those adjustments every single day. I think that's a good approach.
Yeah, yeah. And for me, again, I'm 57 and I only have so much energy. If I'm really being honest, Anthony, most of us really only have so much energy, because after a certain point, we're tapping into reserves. Now, you're younger than me, so you have lots more reserve than me. And I thought I was like the Energizer Bunny until I got breast cancer and realized, oh, I went down, I just depleted myself down to my reserve, like past my reserves. When they talk about, oh, you need to fill your well first. I came to a realization this past year in 2025, no one's talking about the well itself. So, for example, if you're dumping clean water into your wealth or your energy or your core, right? Do we even double check to make sure the walls were like strong? What are the bottom of the well? Did you fortify it? Did you clean it? So is the container of the well itself strong enough to hold it? Because my well had no bottom and the walls were cracked. And the goal is check yourself first. Like, where are you in your self-care? That's another big thing, Anthony. Your mind can't function if your body's not at its highest level. What does that mean? I'm married 34 years in June to my husband. And his snoring got much worse in the last 10 years. Much, much worse. And we were kind of joking, oh my gosh, are you getting Alzheimer's? Because he would fall asleep. He gets up at 4 in the morning to work out since I've known him in college. Long, long time. And we started realizing his fatigue level was getting early in the day. So he used to get tired at 6, then he was getting tired at 5. He would go out shopping and fall asleep in his car at a red light. So I'm telling him, you need to get an apnea test, a sleep apnea test. And he got one, and he had sleep apnea. So we got the machine set up, and he was better. And then he was like, Jenny, you snore at night. I'm like, no, I don't. Don't be a poop. He's like, yes, snore. We should get you tested. And I had worse sleep apnea than my husband. So every night I was going to sleep, I would stop breathing in my sleep 30 times an hour. Every time I slept. And my heart rate was in the 80s and 90s while I was sleeping. That's not normal, in case no one knows. Your heart rate should be 60 when you're sleeping. I was 80 and 90 at a time. So no REM sleep. Do you know what that does to your brain? Your brain breaks down. You must have REM sleep. Your brain cannot reset itself like a computer and do all the things it needs to do. People will go insane from lack of sleep. So if you're not feeding your brain with sleep, you are doing your brain a great disservice, Anthony. So then the mind can't function. Then after the sleep becomes hydration. People take that for granted. It's like a running joke. Are you drinking enough water? And now, I don't know if you see on social media people who are not Asian going, I'm in my Asian phase because I'm drinking hot water. And there's a reason for it, because there's optimal levels of nutrients your body and your brain need to function. So it is very intimately connected, your body and your mind.
Yeah, 100%. Makes a lot of sense. That self care is so key. And it also sounds like you take a self compassionate approach to kind of healing and progress. Right? And it's so important because a lot of us, we impede our progress by beating ourselves up, right? Or just taking a route that is more detrimental in a sense. But having that grace and kindness for yourself is so important.
Absolutely. It's so true. I do this positive intelligence app. I'm a coach for it. And oftentimes we're not even aware of your negative self talk, Anthony. We're not aware of it because it's so ingrained in us. You don't realize that sometimes you're not at your best and you don't know why. And it's because you have a saboteur working and nobody understands that the only person to shift that is you. So, for example, if you're really tough on yourself and you're not allowed to make mistakes, that's a saboteur at work, right? Sometimes there's a fine line between discipline and becoming almost like an overachiever that's never satisfied, right? Or someone who doesn't want to ever have fights because it stresses them out too much, right? And that person's saboteurs is in the positive intelligence module framework, it's called the people pleaser, right? Because they don't know how to deal with conflict. Then there's people who are very strict by the rules because that's what keeps them safe. And that's another saboteur. And we don't even know that those are things that may not be your actual natural first choice to be. They're just ways that you were taught, usually as a child or younger, what the rules of the universe were according to that setup. Right? Because if you think about it, when you and I were first born, and anyone in your audience, Anthony, we didn't come with direction manual. We didn't. I wish we did. It would have been so much easier for our parents. And Anthony, your direction, when you were a tiny baby, and mine, when I was a tiny baby, we were different entities. You had very different needs. And it took a while for our parents to figure out what they were. And during that little window when we were trying to figure out, well, why aren't they changing me? Or why can't they read my mind? I'm hungry. Conditioning and little rules were set up for us to believe about ourselves. And sometimes that's still influencing us today.
Yeah, for sure. I think a big part of it is our come from as well. Like, are we coming from a place of love or a place of fear? It's so important, right? Because I feel like one of the paradoxes of success is to accept where you are and always strive for more in a sense. Because I feel like the nature of life is growth, right? But also like enjoy this moment. Like the presence is the foundation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's really interesting that you reminded us of that. I think I love that. There was just recently an interview, right, between was it Tony Robbins and Alex Hormozy? And Alex asked Tony, I just had this huge thing with this second book. I think he broke the Guinness World Records for sales in one day. And he was being interviewed by Tony Robbins, I think it was. And Tony was like, did you enjoy it? Were you present during the whole time? Because that's the one thing I didn't feel that I felt from you. And I was like, whoa. I mean, you're right. Because Alex wasn't. He said, yeah, you're right. I wasn't in the moment and enjoying it. Because he was like, I'm going to, you know what I mean? Like, he wasn't present in the actual miracle of that moment. And Tony was like, I could sense it. And I was like, oh, this is cool that they're pointing that out. This man just broke the world record for number of sales for a book in one day. And he had to be reminded, you have to be present and enjoy the moment.
Yeah. And presence is a practice, right? Because it's difficult to be present for every amazing thing that happens in our life. But if we actually train to be present through mindfulness and all the tools that you talk about, we can be more receptive to those things, right? It's not about being perfect. It's about kind of going with the flow in a sense, like whatever we're feeling. But if we kind of attune ourselves to what is real, we just kind of experience more of a fulfilled experience. That's what I find.
Yes. There's a group of monks right now doing the Walk for Peace from Texas to Washington, D.C., and they've hit this really bad winter right now coming into the Northeast. And they do talk about mindfulness and presence. Because everyone's asking, they're like, how are you, what do you mean by that? And they're just reminding people that the only thing you have control is you. And they're asking the monks, well, how are you meditating? And one monk shared, well, I just think about because he was very honest, and he said it's very painful. They're on day 90, 93 of walking. They're walking from Texas to DC, Anthony. Washington DC, that's a long walk. It's 100 days of walking. And they're tired and they're in pain, a lot of pain. And he's like, I focus on being present and I focus on each step as I'm stepping. And that helps the pain become manageable.
Yeah.
Because he was like, the thing is, because in their Buddhist studies, I'm not Buddhist, but in their Buddhist studies, they said they study about how life is impermanent. Everything there's nothing that's permanent. Not the pain they're in as they walk. Not the increasing fame everyone's getting, because they went from no one following them to, I think there was 10,000 people at one of the stops that greeted them when they walked into the town. And just, so it's just been, I was like, whoa. And they're just so humble. And their little dog just had surgery. Their dog that they picked up from a walk they did in India. And people just saying, oh, they're so stressed out with world events, and they just see these monks walking, and then the monks are embodying so much peace that just seeing them brings peace to the people when they see them, even if it's on the internet.
For sure, yeah. I mean, I would imagine was what they would say. It's like so important to focus on what we're doing right now and just take the next step, right? It's just such a great thing for life. Like we get caught up on the future worries or the past, but if we just focus on the next thing that will get us to where we need to go, I mean, that's all we can do is kind of like focus your energy towards your actions and stay at peace.
So true. It's so true. It's the monks were one of the monks made a little suggestion. He was like, oftentimes everyone's on their cell phones more than they are with their loved ones. And he's like, how often are you in the same room with your loved ones, but you're on your phone instead of with each other? And I was like, okay. A gentle call out, a gentle call out to the people there, because of course, right? He's on Facebook Live and everyone's videoing him at the same time. It was just really, he got a good laugh from the crowd when he was like, "Yeah, so your phones."
I feel like it's the case for a lot of people. We're just kind of like going through these routines. We're not really fully in the moment. We're not able to fully connect to whatever we're doing because we're always distracted by something.
So true. So true. And you still got to give yourself grace, right? Because the thing is, the mind usually, current times, we've gotten so used to the short videos and the constant stimulation. I think there was just a recent story being done about industry standards for shows now must be dumbed down because they know most people watching the shows are also multitasking. They're already on their phones while they're watching their shows. I know. I was like, and they were like, so you can't make it too complicated because we know that the majority of the audience watching the shows are already still scrolling on their phones, even if their TV is on.
Yeah.
And then I watched the comment in that post, and the majority of people were like, yeah, I'm usually doing my homework on my phone watching the show.
Yeah.
A lot of people were like that. I was like, wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to embody excellence, right? If we're constantly like majoring in minor things, essentially. Like we're focused on all these things that aren't really kind of related to our purpose and our mission. And we're just kind of like, our energy is pulled to all these different directions, so we can't concentrate on what matters.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's okay when you're in the search. It's okay to search for what really, truly matters to each of us. And it's okay also for what matters to us to shift. It's okay. Like, you're not married to it, right? So, for example, when I was first exploring to start to coach officially, like as a has outside just coaching my kids and my husband, like really actually helping people. I remember being really scared to be focused on one particular audience type, a niche, they called it. And I was so worried I might make a mistake. And the irony of it is that you're supposed to be shifting and pivoting. When I first started doing the coaching, it was for women post breast cancer because at that time there was no support at all, right? And now I work with women who are overachievers looking to find a way back home to their bodies. So it's kind of the same, but not. But it's different,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, whoa. Because most of my clients, when I started working with them, Anthony, were all the people before the cancer hit, who didn't realize it wasn't the cancer that took them out of their bodies. They weren't there already. A lot of us aren't there already. We're not in our bodies anymore because we're just worried about the economy, the post-pandemic, other people not being in control of themselves. So we have to be more careful, right? You know what I'm saying? Anthony's got that knowing smile. Like you can't go out and be like Spacey because everyone else is having a really hard time and they don't know how to manage themselves. So now you got to manage yourself and everybody else around you.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
You
Yeah.
can't just, so that takes a lot of energy.
Yeah. I can relate
And
to
your
that. I
mind's
mean,
tired. So for me, if you could just get your body on board and be a united team, you're just so much the better for it.
for sure. I mean, just being able to kind of build that relationship with yourself and your body is so important because when hard times do come, you're going to be ready for it, right? And you're going to be able to handle it in a much more graceful manner. So it's like training in a sense. Like how you live your days is how you live your lives, right? Just being able to live in the flow of things and integrate all these tools will help us become the greatest versions of ourselves. That's how I feel.
I totally agree with you. I in my therapy session was it December? Oh, we're in January. I realized I've never given myself permission for self-care at the length of time my body wants. Like my mind keeps going, "Oh, Jenny, come on. Like why do you need more longer than 20 minutes? That should be enough." That's huge compared to when your kids were young. You got no minutes. Like you didn't do any self-care. So 20 minutes is plenty. And my body's going, Jenny, you're 57 years old. You've raised 2 children, been married 30 something years. You do so much for so many people. You're allowed 90 minutes in the morning for self-care. And it's like self-devotion, right? Because I do somatic exercises and then I do physical therapy exercises to reset up my sacroiliac joint because a lot of us, we don't know this, but we usually have misalignments in our hips in the bony structures, and we have to align those so you don't end up with hip pain or hip arthritis later. So I do that alignment, and then I do energy clearing, and then I do like a face wash. I can look young forever, right? And then I have to like do other journaling. And then I can be really clear channel for people. Otherwise, all the devotion stuff I just explained to you that I do or I listed, it's part of my fortifying that well so that I'm really strong and clear. Every time I speak on anyone's podcast, I know someone's meant to hear something that I say. And it's not me, though. It's about the message. Like what you're doing is about being a channel for what people need to hear. And how clear are we as a channel?
Yeah. It's so important. I mean, to be able to do what we can and express it, we actually have to operate out of a sense of clarity in the most part, right? It's like being able to be clear on your purpose and your why and your reasons because people feel your energy. And it's like, as you mentioned, it's about the message, right?
Yeah, it's about the message, and the more clear you are, it also helps your perspective. Like, have you ever, well, for me anyways, and other people have agreed with me, so I tend to think your audience will probably understand when I say, if you're having a hard day seeing the world in a good way, nothing goes right when you leave the house. Versus if it's a good day and you're really centered and you go out, nothing really phases you. And that ability to click that on is all within your control.
Yeah.
So for example, if I have a bad night's sleep and I know for whatever reason it's going to affect my clarity of thought, Anthony, if I step out, I will get stopped at every single red light in my car. I will have people cutting me off no matter what I do when I'm driving, right? If I'm clear and strong in who I am and I'm very present, somehow or other, it's bizarre, I never hit a red light when I'm out. People never cut me off. I don't know why. I'm like, this is so cool. It's a great job. It's a great day to be out. It's sun is shining, you know. So it's really interesting how your mind can actually affect how you experience the world and things that you think are out of your control, like lights and their timing, or even avoiding accidents type of thing.
Yeah. I mean, state of mind is so important. Just being able to, be able to make foundational decisions, right? And it's so important to, know who we are in a sense and just kind of operate out of our standards and our values, because that's kind of how it's going to determine how we live and how we filter our decisions. So, yeah.
So true. So true. And values also shift too sometimes. Again, similar to the goals or which directions you want. I remember when I was in college way back when the dinosaurs roamed the earth and saying, I had a graduate teacher and she was like, oh yeah, I just finished, she was like a mom of a 2-year-old. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, what, your 2-year-old isn't in preschool? Like, judging her. And I was in my early 20s, right? Because I was in school. I was still a college student. And I remember judging her. Like, why isn't your 2-year-old in preschool or something? Like, why is she still home with you? Because remember, I'm the one who was like, I was sent off to be with my grandparents when I was 4. To raise my 2-year-old brother, right? For 8 months. So back then, not realizing what trauma I had experienced, I was judging this woman with her 2-year-old. And then the irony, Anthony, joke on me, I had fraternal twins, and I ended up never sending them out. They homeschooled until college. I mean, can you see the irony? Like, I played my joke on myself.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, just being able to kind of trust life in the process and understand that, when challenges come up, we have the tools to be ready, right? So in terms of somatic therapy, how exactly can we start to do that in our own lives? Like, I know it's a daily practice, but is there anything that maybe for people who are just kind of becoming aware of these things, like what can I do to get started?
Yes. What can you do to get started? I love this question. Oh, well, to do it for free, you can look on YouTube for somatic exercises. You can follow me on Instagram under Jenny C. Cohen and do the 100 Days Challenge with the dancing. You can also continue with me because I'll be offering somatic exercises. The Workout Witch, who is one of my teachers for somatic release exercises, she has an app, and you can access her app for exercises to help you get connected to your body. If you don't want to do any of those, and some people aren't ready, it's okay. My first and most easiest, quickest thing is put a timer on your phone to go off once a day where you just tune into your sense of smell, your sense of taste. Like, think about tasting your favorite taste, smelling your favorite smell, hearing what's happening in their surroundings right now, all three at the same time, then feeling your feet on the floor, your butt in the seat if you're seated, your clothing on your body. Now let your clothing feel your body. You don't have to understand that, just think about it. And then open up your peripheral field so that you're seeing everything to the sides without your eyes moving from the center. So like, you're gonna really soften your gaze and open up your peripheral field so you can see everything on the sides without your eyes moving to the side. And you tune into all 5 of those senses: hearing, smell, taste, touch, vision, all at the same time. And then if you're able to and want to, take a breath in, take a breath out. and then do the movement that you are feeling inclined to do after that. So some people would just start to walk. Some people would rock side to side. Some people would kind of do this with their shoulders up and down. You're tuning into what does your body need to release tension that you were holding you didn't even know you held. That's the first step.
I love that. Awareness is the first step to change, right? It's like we have all these tensions and these things that we're holding on to, and we're not aware of them. So just bringing awareness to that is the first step. So I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Yeah.
So now we had that awareness. Like, what can people expect to see in their lives once they start to make these changes, right? Because a lot of us, I find, we're kind of stuck in these ways of being, and we don't know there's another way. And once we start to kind of transcend that, we just kind of open up a door of possibilities. That's kind of what I find.
Yes, yes. You do start, after the awareness is always going to be some type of action. And the goal is for you to still stay connected between mind and body long enough as you start your action that you know it serves you and not just the person you happen to be in closest proximity with. I want to be really clear with that. When I was first healing, I didn't know how susceptible I was to other people's influences. And I want your audience to hear it's okay if sometimes your inclination in how you're going to heal and what you're going to do might not be where a lot of people walk. And it might be a little bit by yourself. And that's okay. Because for me, in my healing and for a lot of my clients, in learning what they really truly want meant actually having the ability to have boundaries and saying no. And then making room for people that would respect their wishes or respect what you want to do versus people who are very invested in you being your old self forever.
Yeah. It's just being mindful of that energy, right? Because like the environment definitely kind of influences our energy. But the thing is, we also kind of influence the environment with our energy, right? So do the best that we can to kind of operate and be a light for people, right? And listen to their guidance. So key, but just having that awareness within us that being around uplifting people, uplifting energies is really going to influence our lives. Like if we're going for goals, it's much easier to work towards that if we're not constantly have our energy detracted, right?
Of course, of course.
Yeah.
It is a lifelong type of endeavor though, and it's okay if there are times when you just want to rest and not be pushing yourself. I'm always the enabler to give you permission to rest. You know, I come from the generation of Jane Fonda where you just pushed and pushed. I don't think rest was in the dictionary back then, you know, when the dinosaurs roamed. There was no dictionary. So there wasn't a way of there was no permission. You just go until you can't go anymore, and then you just fall, you know, then you kind of drop and sleep, and then you wake up and just keep going. And I don't ascribe to that anymore. Because then how can you actually truly be clear in why you're doing something, what you're doing, how you're doing, unless you're rested and centered, right? And if anyone's ever feeling like, oh, I really wanted to stop a month ago, then this is your clear sign to stop what it is that you've been asking, your body's been asking you to stop. For example, like I used to work for an online membership. It wasn't my company, Anthony. And I stayed because out of loyalty when I really wanted to leave for quite a while, right? And then I went away on a trip and made a mistake in her business, and she fired me via email. And I was devastated because I had stayed on this business for her because I thought we were friends for about 8 months past when I should have left. It was devastating to be fired via email, and the best thing that could have happened to me because I worked for her a year. I made that in my next private client within a week. Right?
Yeah.
So her feelings aside, sometimes it's okay for you to say no to something that you might have stayed for a long time out of loyalty. You know, don't wait until you get fired via email like me. You can walk away from it.
Yeah. We really have to listen to our bodies, right? And like understand that we have these frameworks of doing things, but if something doesn't feel right, we have to kind of honor that and kind of develop that relationship with intuition, right? Just being able to kind of make more intelligent decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you're making your intelligent decisions or answers even, it's okay sometimes to say I don't know. Let me get back to you. There are very few decisions that require immediate answers. Nothing, not everything's life or death. Just remember that it's okay to pause and let the strength of your own mind power through. Does this really serve you? Do you really
Yeah.
need to do this? Right? Do you really? And if anyone in the audience is like, oh, none of this serves me, that's okay. Go to his next episode with his next amazing guest. And I have many people who tell me, "Oh my gosh, I totally needed to hear this because I didn't even realize I had this problem until I heard you to talk about it."
Yeah. Well, in different things, right? Each message, I feel like we have to like filter things through discernment, right? Like, because so much great information, but what do we actually need and how do we apply it? And we may not need this in the moment, but maybe we need something else. But in the future, like we just kind of have to adapt, right?
Yeah.
All right, Jenny, this has been awesome. I appreciate you so much for coming on the show today, sharing your story with us, your message, and all the tools of the mind and somatics. It's so important to kind of know about these things and just kind of incorporate them in our lives as we see fit, right? So learning about these things can really kind of amplify our life and our energy to take control of our health, our mindsets, and our lives overall. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Anthony.
Absolutely. So if people want to get connected with you and your work, where can we find you?
What I invite your audience to is my monthly workshop at Moveto Bloom BLOOM.com, and they can always message me on any social media. Let me know that you found me through Anthony.
Awesome. Thank you.